Hi folks, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. What you see in the vise is a fly that's going to descend through the water column really slowly. It's a super slow sinking buzzer. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H230 barbless hook. This one's at size 10 and it's on a medium wire. The thread I'm going to be using today is a classic black waxed thread from Semperfli, and it's at 6/0. Now I've already added a little bit more wax to the thread, and what I want to do is just catch it in behind the eye, and I'm going to get a couple of turns just up the shank of the hook. Now next thing, I'm going to add a little breather for my buzzer, and what I'm using is some fine floating poly yarn. This one's from Upavon. It's very thin. I've got a little bit that I've cut off here. As you can see there, it's quite good for posts on parachute flies as well, but it's ideal for this buzzer breather. So I'm going to lay that on, and I'm going to come back up towards the eye, not all the way to the eye, and then I'm going to come back, trapping that in a couple of millimeters, and then I can take away the remainder of the poly yarn and then pick up my rat's tail once more and use that as a guide to come down the shank. Now as I get a little bit further down, I'm going to stop midway, and at this point I'm going to remove my rat's tail. What I'm using for my rib then is some magic tinsel. Now it's a combo pack. It comes in 1/32 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch, and this one's colour is red. Now I'm going to use the 1/32 of an inch, which is the thinner of the two, and what I want to do is just make sure I've got it really tied down onto the shank here. And the reason for that is what I want to do is pull it, and you can see on the camera there it's going quite thin, and that's exactly what I want for this fly. Not always, sometimes I want it to be the thickness that you see it in, but on this occasion I want it nice and thin. So the body of the fly then, I'm using some Trout Stalkers dubbing. This is the Highland Peat. It's a nice dark colour for the body, but it also has flecks of other colours within it, which is ideal. And I'm just going to dub some of that on. Yeah, this time of year, it's not so much, for me anyway, it's not so much about the patterns I'm fishing, but the speed in which they're sinking in the water column. That's all important for the middle and the back end of May. It just makes such a difference. If your flies are in the taking zone, the fish have got more chance of finding them, and you've got more chance of a hookup. So I've put that dubbing on. As you can see, it's by name Scruffy dubbing. The first turn of my rib then is going to come onto the shank of the hook, and then with the next turn I'll come onto the body, keeping quite a lot of pressure on this rib. It is very robust, and it can take as much as you can sling at it. So I've got quite a lot of pressure onto the shank. I'm going to come all the way up my body. So I've got 4 turns in there. If you're trying to load and you want them to be all the same, it's always worth counting your turns. If you're not bothered, and generally speaking I don't bother, if I've got 3 one and 4 the other, it doesn't put me up or down. I don't think the fish are that fussy, to be perfectly honest. So I've got a couple of turns in front of the material, then I can take away my rib, all ready for the next fly. Now I don't want to pernickety about with this much. I want it to be quite rough really. That's what keeps it, the fatter profile with all the strands slows it down in the water column. So I'm going to add in my cheeks, and what I'm using is some Comp Candy Goose Biots, and I've got a couple that I've taken off here earlier, and what I want to do with these is just cut a little point in them, so they're like so, and then I'll try your side in first. I'm going to come back to my second turn and lock that into place. Your side first, then I'll grab another Biot. Again, I'm going to just cut a little pointy bit in the Biot. There's no real need for this, but to my mind it just makes it look a bit better. And then a few turns to get that Biot well trapped into place, and then I can twist away the Goose Biots. Okay, so I'm going to come back to where I want my Thorax to start. That looks about right proportion wise, and I'm going to use some seal's fur to create the Thorax. Now the seal's fur obviously associated quite a lot with dry flies, and again this is just another material that's going to help slow the fly down in the water column. This one works particularly well on a washing line setup, and you can keep them flies right up high in the water for quite a while. So I'm just going to work that in, and to finish off I'm going to pull back my poly yarn. Remember, we didn't take it right up to the eye, and get a couple of turns in front there. Now to finish off with this, I'm going to use some Solaris Bone Dry. I'll just get a little bit on my brush. I don't want very much. Again, don't want to add any more weight than necessary. And I would tie this fly down to size 14, which can be a bit finicky, but it's definitely worth the effort. It's got a lot of fish for me, this. It's a bit like, not dissimilar to the Muskins really. I think it's a bit quicker to tie than the Muskins, and certainly in the smaller sizes a bit less fiddly. So just cure that off. And last but not least, I don't want my breather being that big, so I'm going to, excuse my fingers, come in and just take that away. And there we go. And that will serve you extremely well. Now the varnish buzzers, they look very pretty, but this time of year you need to be tying something that's going to be a little bit slower descending in the water column. If you enjoyed that, please check out this video on the screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.